Hello! Today we're going to a seance. Okay, so today we're going to a seance, and I need to be really clear before I do anything else that I have asked permission to film in the seance and I wasn't allowed to do that. And actually the reason for that is pretty reasonable. So this seance is being held publicly in a place called Pluckley Village, and this seance is organised so that members of the public can buy tickets to go and attend this traditional Victorian seance. So as a result, a lot of the people that are going to be at this seance will be there for very personal reasons. So for example, they might be trying to contact a dead loved one. They might be there because they need closure about something. So it's incredibly personal. So I totally understand why I'm not allowed to film at this seance. So I don't want anyone to be disappointed and think you're going to have footage of a seance, which is just not going to happen. So this seance was advertised on EventBrite. I don't remember how I came across it, I just did. And it is in haunted Pluckley Village. Now Pluckley is a village that is about half an hour away from where I live in Canterbury, and Pluckley is said to be one of the most haunted villages in the world. There's a lot of dispute about whether or not those hauntings are actually true or whether they're just legend, but this is where the seance is taking place. The tickets for this seance were £26.46 each. So not even £26.45, £26.46 each. And I bought 2 tickets, one for me and one for my friend Rowanna, who you'll get to meet later. Now the only instructions that I got for this seance were that I wasn't allowed to attend under the influence of drugs or alcohol, so we can tick that box, we're good with that. And the second instruction that I got was that I needed to bring a photo of a dead loved one. I'm not entirely sure exactly how much participation is expected at this event, so I'd like to think that you will be able to sit and watch and participate quietly, and that you won't have to participate in a really active way, because I would feel a little bit uncomfortable if I have to participate actively. But anyway, I am also a little bit skeptical about the location of this seance. So the location is Pluckley Village Hall. Now I'm not entirely sure how much you can turn a village hall into a traditional Victorian seance-y feeling vibe, but we shall see. That's all we can do, is just wait and see. A little bit of context about Rowanna as well. So Rowanna is my friend. She is a psychotherapist and she is a non-believer. So she is very respectful that people have their own views, they have their own beliefs about things, and she will not be judgmental about people's beliefs. So you also need to be not judgmental about the fact that she doesn't believe. Sometimes in the past, when Rowanna has been on the show, people have disliked the alternate opinion of a non-believer. However, I think it's really interesting to have somebody who staunchly doesn't believe. So if I'm there and I do believe, then it'll be interesting to hear an alternative point of view. I'm approaching this as an open-minded skeptic. I'm not entirely sure how much I believe in seances in general, but I'm willing to have my mind changed. I'm not going into this closed-minded, and there's a part of me that is a little bit nervous that I might actually experience something that will terrify me.
Attempts to communicate with the dead have been a part of most cultures throughout history in some way or another. The seances that we know today, with a group of people sitting around a table in a dark room, were popularised in the mid-1800s. Mediums such as the Fox sisters, Cora Scott Hatch and Edgar Cayce all contributed to the rise in the spiritualist movement, which saw events such as psychic readings and seances becoming more mainstream. It is important to point out that all of these people came with controversies, and the legitimacy of their psychic abilities has been questioned. The Victorian era was also a period of great scientific discovery, and of course people were curious as to whether any of the supposed paranormal activity at these seances was actually scientifically measurable. Could life after death be objectively and definitively proven? The answer was no. And many scientists railed against these seances and alleged mediums, convinced that they were fraudulent and preying on bereaved people. Seances decreased in popularity over time but are still practiced today. Many who conduct seances will admit to the fraud and trickery of the Victorian seances, but also maintain that there were some genuine cases out there. To be honest, in my mind, a Victorian seance conjures up more images of trickery and hoaxes than of genuine connection with spirits. But I guess we'll just have to find out.
So we are in the most adorable little pub called the Rose and Crown. I had to think about that. We wanted to go to a pub called the Black Horse, but we couldn't get in because it was Burns night and it was a private event, and nowhere has string lights. We had to drive down like country lanes. It was ridiculous. And this is Roanna Bond.
Hi. So I'm here for the Seance exciting event this evening. We've already had an encounter with a werewolf, sort of. We're trying to walk to a pub in the pitch black. We encountered some kind of snorting,
some sort of snarling animal. I don't know what it was, but I was alarmed.
It was deeply frightening. Yeah, and now we've just found a very nice little pub with a real fire and well, drinks mainly.
Okay, so a very important question. What's your thoughts on seancing in general?
So I've never been to a seance before. This is my first one, and I'm very intrigued to see what it's like. I don't know. I feel like I have no idea what to expect, and I feel like I want to see who else is there, like the kind of person that is interested in going to a seance. And I'm sort of intrigued to see if we actually contact any dead people, what connections actually can be made, and I'm not really sure that I believe in it. So we'll see.
Hello, so we have just arrived at the seance venue and it is very much giving me Village Hall energy.
It's very Village Hall energy. We've driven through the dark with no lights.
There are no street lights
at all.
Anywhere. It was actually baffling. And as well as that, we went to a pub called the Rose and Crown, which was really nice. Oh no, we have to go. We're going in.
We should also mention the Brussels sprout smell, because there was a very strong smell.
Yeah, just in case it comes into play later. Okay, bye. We've got to go.
So that you can get an idea of what we actually did, I'll tell you very briefly how the evening played out. We entered into the depths of doom, which was very cleverly disguised as an innocuous village hall. But in fairness, they had done a really good job at making it spooky. We all sat around a table that was set with candles and ghost hunting equipment, like a REM pod and an EMF detector. It was completely dark apart from the candlelight. We started the evening with some mindfulness and some quiet meditation, with the host encouraging us to invite the spirits in. And then she played some terrifying horror movie voices that honestly sounded like this. And was completely terrifying. We did some work with the pictures of the loved ones who had passed away, and people tried to intuit information about them. We then did some automatic writing, which is allowing yourself to go into a sort of meditative state and let the pen do what it wanted on the page and see if any messages came out of it. We used a spirit box, and finally we did a Ouija board. And we are back talking to you from the future, and we're going to go through some of our thoughts and feelings about the seance. We did attend it. I know I've got no footage of it, but I just wasn't allowed, so you're going to have to deal with it. So, Roanna.
Yes.
Let's talk about our first impressions in general when we first went to the Village Hall in Pluckley.
I mean, it was a Village Hall.
Yes.
That is one thing. So in that sense, it was not quite what you'd expect for a seance, for a setting for a seance. And it was really interesting watching the group turn up, was it? And seeing who was there and
yes.
What kind of people were interested in the seance. But actually, the thing that was weird about it in a way was that it felt really down to earth. Like,
yes, it did, because we'd had this build up where there was no lights in Pluckley. It was pitch dark. We were walking past this hedge, and then this snorting, snarling animal was on the other side. It was all very weird. Couldn't get into a pub because they wouldn't let us in, and anyway, very strange. And then we pulled up at this very innocuous Village Hall, and it was, I have to say, I was a bit like, oh no. When we got to the Village Hall, I thought this is going to be really disappointed.
And there were some people there who seemed to be like, you could tell they were sort of wanting to see what it was about.
Yes, like us, basically.
Like we were, really. The people running it were just very kind of earthy and sort of relaxed in a way. All the lights were off. That was quite funny. I wasn't really expecting that in quite that way. So we went into the Village Hall in the main space, and it was just pitch black with some quite atmospheric, candle type lighting.
I thought they did really well, considering it was a Village Hall, and I thought they did really well to create this atmosphere. So when we walked in, it was pitch black. There was a rocking chair
in the middle of the room.
That never got used.
Never got used.
That was weird.
So it really was just there for the effect. And then at the top of the village hall, in front of the like red curtained stage, there was a round table with big candlesticks that were all lighting in the middle, and then all these gadgets in the middle of the table, and
a black tablecloth.
And a black tablecloth, chairs all around, Ouija boards. Like it was very atmospheric for what it was. And there were a lot of points actually where I forgot I was just in a village hall.
Yeah, it really drew you in, didn't it? And it was freezing. I mean, it was freezing. It was like 9 o'clock on a winter's night in the middle of January in a village hall. So it genuinely was really cold, and I think that did do something to the atmosphere.
Yes, it did.
It was quite helpful.
It did, because everybody was quite kind of huddled up and cozied up in jackets and stuff, and then in this sort of mad circumstance, these people that were all suddenly in really close quarters together in this really intense, intimate environment. It was just so weird.
It was really quite mad. And then very kind of practical. It went from like this incredibly atmospheric setup to like rules around the fire escape.
Health and safety.
Like that, which I just hadn't even thought about. You obviously have to do that, but
yeah, because it's a public event, isn't it? So, but you just don't think about it. You think you're going to kind of float into this room and there'll be a woman covered in scarves, but no, there was none of that. It was all very practical, really.
Very practical.
So when we actually got like to sitting around the table, and you and I sat together and immediately sat with our backs to the big gaping expanse of the rest of the room, which I didn't even think of. And the rocking chair. And literally people were like, haha, you've got your backs to everything. And I was like, oh, didn't think of that at all. So what did you feel when you were around the table? Like, did you...
It did feel quite intense. It felt quite... Yeah, intimate and together, and kind of a bit like the rest of the world didn't exist.
Yes!
A bit like that. Felt a bit like, that was all that was there.
Which I have to commend them for creating that environment.
Yeah, no, that is impressive. Something about the round table really must have done that, I think. Us all coming together like that. Then I think I felt sort of... I think there was definitely a part of me, I don't know about you, that was like, alright, let's see what you've got then.
Well, because I went as like, because I know you're a non-believer, but I went as kind of an open-minded skeptic. I was like, you know what, if something happens, change my mind. You know, I'm here, I'm ready. If something happens, I will accept it. And I was game for, like, I was gunning for something to happen a little bit, because I think it was so serious, and it was so seriously set up. We were suddenly in this really intense environment. All these people were here with the same intention, and suddenly I thought, oh, I'm actually quite interested to see what happens here, and I kind of want something to happen.
There was definitely a feeling of expectation in the air.
Yes,
like something could happen. Something, a lot of kind of like, you know, we don't necessarily know, and you can't guarantee, a bit like seeing the Northern Lights or something. But there was a sense of kind of charge in the air, and
actually, and I quite liked that honesty from the hosts who said, you know, often when you go on paranormal investigations or ghost hunts or whatever, nothing happens.
Yeah.
You know, that's what you don't see, is that there are many hours of nothing happening. And it did seem that a lot of the people around the table were quite versed and experienced with this sort of thing, whereas we weren't.
No idea what to expect, no idea what was going to happen. I mean, literally no idea what was going to happen.
So you've never, because it's not your thing to watch, you know, paranormal investigations or ghost hunting or any of that kind of stuff. So what were your thoughts on the opening section?
So it really was new to me. Like, I guess I had preconceptions from films and things, but really didn't know, is that really how seances work? Like, is that really what people do? And I guess in a way, partly it lived up to those expectations. Some of it was just kind of really kooky. Like, what I really wasn't expecting was that a lot of the, I don't know if this is what happens nowadays, or is this particular sort of group that ran it in this way, but a lot of the inviting in the spirits and talking about the sort of setup and laying the atmosphere down, I suppose, was pre-recorded, and I did find that's just not what I was expecting at all. So the lady was there, and she had been talking to the group, you know, welcoming us and everything. But then basically when it came to sort of that introductory part of laying the scene and sort of trying to get people to relax into opening their minds up, I suppose, to be open to spirits coming in. Then she basically pressed play on a phone, and then it kind of, there was this pre-recorded voice intro. So I didn't really understand that bit, and I kind of feel like it might have been a bit more atmospheric done live.
Yeah, I didn't understand that either, and I found that some of the stuff that was said didn't match what was happening in the room. And then they went on to use what I referred to as like wibbly voices. Like,
that was scary.
That really freaked me out. So that she had this pre-recording of multiple voices all speaking over each other and whispering and
probably.
Oh my! And we just had to sit there and listen to it, and I honestly was like, this is the bit that's going to give me nightmares.
Yeah.
Like, the devil himself could show up at this and I won't be frightened, but these voices, that's what's scaring me.
That was quite...
I'm not happy with
unnerving.
this.
I wasn't expecting that. That was...
No! And it did kind of call into question the whole concept of priming.
Yeah.
You know, because we were sitting around this table in this really intense environment, listening to all these jumbled, whispering voices, and I thought, this is designed to make you feel really on edge and then make you feel like something might happen. And I guess maybe that makes people more aware of what's going on around them in a way, so I understand why they did it, but it did catch me off guard.
Yeah, I really wasn't expecting that. And it was like something out of a horror film. That particular bit was kind of,
it really was.
Like childish voices, overlapping and whispering, combined with a bit of kind of white noise, and
it's very weird. That was very weird.
Bizarre.
And what did you think of the tech? So I very pointedly asked. So there was a K2 meter on the table.
The lights?
The K2, I think, was the one with the antennae that made the sound. Yeah, that was that one. And then there was an EMF detector on the table as well, and some, which is meant to detect electromagnetic fields, I think. And then there was some cat balls, which are little small round balls that light up when people touch them, basically. And they were all in the middle of the table, and I knew that you weren't up to date with that sort of thing. And to be honest, I'm not really either. There was some bits on the table that I was like, what is that? But so then I asked, can you explain what these things are? And everybody else around the table knew straight away. They were all like, well, that's a K2 and that's an EMF and blah, blah, blah. So what were your thoughts on the electrical stuff?
If I'm really honest, I did feel like it was a part of setting the atmosphere up.
Yeah.
Like the lights flashing at a certain point, they suddenly go red and, you know. But actually also it did work, is the other thing I would say, for setting up atmosphere, because actually it does do something when you sort of hear it crackling or you see the lights. It does, it's quite effective. So it also, and I can sort of see, the desire to want to legitimise in some way.
Yes, scientifically be able to say, no, it is true because we're getting these readings or whatever. And the people around the table were obviously well versed in them, because the people around the table were very earnestly asking questions and using the EMF detector and stuff to gauge their answers.
It also focuses you actually now, because people were literally kind of addressing the monitors, the detectors with questions, weren't they? And using them in the sense of, if you're there, show us, like, make it light up, or that was, I wasn't necessarily expecting that actually, because it was kind of interacting with the devices, which
but I didn't expect that people would be so readily interacting with the devices, which kind of brings me to the next question, which is, what were your feelings about the group in general? Because I thought, maybe very naively, that we would go and it would be like a giddy atmosphere, because I am one of these people who, in the worst possible situations, I start to giggle. And I did at certain points in the night when it was really intense and everybody was really serious. I was like, oh no, I'm going to start laughing. And it's not because I'm trying to be rude. It's the intensity. It's like a nervous tick. I just start laughing. I thought there'd be a lot of that, but there really wasn't.
There really wasn't. It was very sincere.
Yes.
Very sincere and taken very seriously. I think there was definitely a part of my mind that for a while kept trying to work out if some of them had been planted and were only saying things for a particular reason at a certain point to kind of lift the atmosphere or get it going. But I have to say, it really doesn't seem like that at all.
No.
Because we spoke to some people a bit at the end, didn't we? And I think everybody there was entirely genuine, actually, and had their own reasons for coming. But yeah, I agree with you about the seriousness, and actually kind of made me take it more seriously.
Right?
Because I was like, oh no, we can't just be having a laugh and finding it a bit funny at points. It was like, oh no, this is actually a deadly serious exercise, and people are really here to do this.
Yes, and they are really here to communicate with spirits, and they are earnest about it, and they are not here to take the piss. And it did make me kind of buckle up and go, oh no, I need to take this seriously too, which is probably a good thing.
Yeah.
Because I don't think it would have been very fair if we had gone and scoffed at it or been rude about it or made a laugh of it, because
really close-minded,
because these people were there because they really believed. I think there were people there who came with the intention of contacting a particular loved one, and they were going to contact that loved one,
which I guess
regardless.
is partly pre-set up. I mean, that probably is true for people who go to seances a lot. I imagine that is true generally, that you're seeking a connection with someone. But also because one of the exercises at the beginning was about bring a photo of a loved one who's died, it kind of gets you into that arena immediately, doesn't it? Of, I would like to connect with this person. So I guess that set something up. But actually, I thought the woman who was leading it managed that really well, because quite a few times she sort of obviously had a good sense. I guess she's done it a lot. Like that some people would be people who'd gone to this kind of thing a lot, and some people would be their first time, or they would be more cynical, or that kind of thing. And so she was quite good at saying, okay, is anyone feeling a bit more cynical? Is anyone,
Yeah, because she called me out. And the thing is, right, I went, like I said, open-minded skeptic. I'm fine if stuff started happening, I wouldn't be judgmental. But she stopped at the beginning and went, well, you're obviously the cynic in the room. And it was because I was sitting like this.
Because you were a resting bitch face.
Because I just have a resting bitch face. And that's what happens when I'm concentrating. When I'm concentrating in particular, my face gets really, furrowed. And then I end up looking really cross, and I've had lecturers stop lectures to be like, do you have a problem with content? And I'm like, no, this is just my face.
Just does this.
But then I also wanted to be like, I also am a little bit skeptical about this whole thing. But I didn't. I was just like, no, I'm willing to be involved. Don't worry about it. And I was willing to be involved.
And we did. Yeah. We did all the exercises, and and it's always true of anything, isn't it? You get more out of it if you put more into it. So that, I felt like we were, in that sense, quite open-minded with it all. But it was really, I do think the main overriding thing about the group was just actually sort of being so struck by how much it meant to a lot of the people in that room. And I really wasn't expecting people to be as kind of confident with it. I guess the sense of people who've gone to seances a lot was, that one point later in the evening, somewhere a lady that was there sort of said suddenly went, there's a man at the other end of the room pacing up and down, and he's really angry. And at that moment in my mind I was like, oh, she's definitely a plant. She's definitely a plant, because that was such a kind of really confident thing to suddenly assert. But she really wasn't a plant, and she obviously really felt it.
And the thing is, so I'm used to being in this arena in some way, shape or form. Like, I listen to stories like this all the time, so I'm used to people saying, I am intuitive and I can feel these things happening, or I can feel that there is a female energy in the room or whatever. But you're not.
No,
because it's not the world that you operate in. And I was really struck by the fact that the group was so diverse. As in, there was older people, there was me and Ro, obviously, who'd never been to a seance before. There was a couple next to us who I don't think had ever been to a seance before, and I felt like they were just
similar age, weren't they?
Casual observers as well. And then there was people who were there for a really particular reason, to contact loved ones. There were people who seemed to go to seances regularly that were there. I thought, wow, what an odd mix of people.
What a collection of people. And they really seem to know, you were asking about the devices, they really seem to, I guess obviously if you've gone to the seances a lot, they sort of knew, it was like they knew exactly how the whole evening would unfold, if that makes sense.
Whereas we really didn't. I did not know what to expect.
What was coming next. No, because they were it was quite structured. I don't think I was expecting that.
Yes. Yes, it was. So, but just before this, you would have seen that I laid out what the night was like, but it was very structured. It was almost felt like I quite appreciated being an ex-teacher. It was like a well-structured lesson.
It was sort of like a session plan.
Yeah, where it was like, oh, we're going to do this for this amount of time, and this for this amount of time, and actually, it kept the night moving.
Yeah. Because actually, we were there about 2.5 hours in the end, so quite a substantial length of time. And honestly, before we went, in terms of first impressions, you know, the first question you asked, I honestly didn't know. I thought maybe it would be a bit more like the kind of Victorian style of a woman on a stage, even, who would be talking to us as a kind of like a passive audience in a way.
Almost cold reading the room, doing the whole, I have a bee here, does that mean anything to anybody? Yeah, that's what I thought it was going to be as well, but it really wasn't.
And it wasn't at all. It was this kind of dining room sized sort of round table, and then 10 of us, you know, around it, quite...
and it was completely interactive.
And very interactive.
So what activity did you like the most? I say activity like it was a play date. Play date with the dead.
What a thought. Yeah. Maybe the writing, the sort of free association writing.
That was mine too.
Was it? Oh, we actually had this conversation.
So we did automatic writing, and I did a bit of a brief explanation, but I actually genuinely found the automatic writing really mindful. So there was almost like a meditative track that was playing, and you had to like close your eyes, put your head down, and just let the pen like be guided across the page. I drew some fucking hieroglyphics, and like I didn't know what. I looked at mine, I was like, oh, kind of half expected it to be like a perfectly
some kind of beautiful
written piece of prose, and then I was like, oh, it was just squiggles.
But you were out for the camp.
Yeah, loved it.
You were really like...
I loved it. I really enjoyed it. I felt really relaxed and mindful. Like I would do that ordinarily, I think, because it was. I actually really enjoyed it.
I just wrote the words that came into my mind, which was, I think there was Son, Birmingham, and William.
Yes, you did.
That means nothing to me at all. I don't think it was coming from any particular connection. I think the words were just in my mind for some reason, but they were in my mind. I don't know why, but they were. But I really enjoyed. There's something about the absorption of it or something.
No, I enjoyed it too. How weird is that? We have not spoken about that. No. And it was also the bit, so despite myself, like I said, I ended up getting really involved, and I really wanted something to happen. Like I genuinely wanted to open my eyes and see that I had actually written something. And then there was a girl kind of maybe 3 people down from me, and she said, oh, I don't know, I didn't write anything, but I had the name John in my head the whole way through. And I did too. And genuinely, that was the name that was in my head. And I honestly, at the table, I was like, oh, I had the name John in my head too. So I could totally see, suddenly I was like, I'm getting swept away with this.
Yeah, and there was an excitement, I remember.
Yeah.
And there was a kind of, me too.
Yeah, I really was excited. I was like, wow!
And I went to like, wow,
who's John? Is that the guy walking around?
Yeah, and I guess that's how, but actually the woman running it did say quite a few times, not quite she didn't quite say you get out what you put in, but she was talking about a sort of readiness, wasn't she? Or like an availability in the room, which was partly, I think, why she was saying sometimes these things go one way, sometimes they go another. And I guess actually in a way, because we were with a group of people that were taking it really seriously, but were also very into it. You know.
I guess it meant we got the most out of it too, because I think we would have looked stupid if we were the ones sitting there going,
oh, definitely.
Oh, I'm not doing that, because everybody else was so ready to ask questions. Like people were calling out to the room. Like there was no kind of sense of coyness or embarrassment. It was just, we are here to have a seance. Let's get stuck into it. And you know what? I was like, fair play to you, because then I got
involved. There was real passion kind of in the room and in people, and that talking to the devices thing. It wasn't just the people running the group that were doing it. Lots of people in the group just suddenly out of nowhere, apparently sort of connected to nothing, would suddenly start asking the device, is that because there's a spirit here, and the spirit's coming near, and they'd really go into it, like, you know, asking all sorts of questions. And
except that there was one woman who was she called out constantly, and in fair play to her, she kept it going. But she did say a number of times, if there's a spirit in the room, can you come and touch somebody? And I was like, can you not?
Yeah,
I don't consent to that. I don't consent to anybody living or dead touching me, so no, thank you. Go say touch me, not touch anybody in the room. I don't want you touched by anything.
Yeah, that was it was sort of like, okay, you might be happy with that, but maybe not everyone is.
But then another part of me was like, oh my god, what if something comes and touches me right now?
What will I do?
There was definitely a moment, because she did say that a few times, where, and because we had sat ourselves with our back to the entire rest of the village hall, which was a big empty space, where I did almost imagine what would it be like if you suddenly felt something on your shoulder. Like, that would be quite frightening. I don't know why the rocking chair was there. We never actually
I think it was just for the atmosphere.
Just atmospheric.
I think so.
I thought they might use it at some point.
So what did you not like? What activity was your least effective activity?
Do you know, if I was really honest, and it surprised me at the
I know
time,
what you're going to say, I think.
It was the Ouija board.
Me too!
Which wasn't what I expected. I've never done a Ouija board, so I was
neither.
actually really quite excited about giving it a go.
Yeah.
I thought, I've never done one, you watch all these films, like, will it feel quite frightening and a bit electric and scary? And I actually found it didn't move me at all.
No, I found it quite boring, actually.
And it went on for quite a while.
Yeah. I was quite looking forward to it, because I spent a lot of time watching other people playing the Ouija board, because I wanted to see kind of how, there was 2 different Ouija boards, and I wanted to see how people interacted with it. And there was one Ouija board in particular, and on that Ouija board there was a person who had made it very clear from the beginning that they had wanted to contact a particular person who had died recently in their life, which is very sad. And would you believe that person came through in the Ouija board? And it was very dramatic. And I do think that person, whether consciously or subconsciously, and I think it was subconsciously, was moving the planchette.
Yeah.
And I don't think they realised they were doing it, but my overwhelming feeling was that this person was moving the planchette. And I don't think, because I don't think people mean to do it. I really don't think people mean to do it. But I didn't feel anything other than, I think you want to communicate with a particular person, so you are moving the planchette. Would I have been the same? Probably. Probably in the right atmosphere, you probably would end up moving it without realising that you were moving it. Do you know what I mean?
But sort of see how.
Yeah.
Without even being actively conscious, really, that you're doing it.
Yeah.
Just a desire to hear a certain name, to be able to feel like you have connected with that person.
Yeah. So Ouija board, underwhelming.
It was underwhelming. Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
Yeah, the bit that was unexpected for me was the way that she handled bringing in spirits, like and entering and exit of the spirits in a way.
Yeah,
she was very respectful in setting it up and sort of saying, that if you want to end a conversation with a spirit, just make sure you say goodbye, and make sure you say goodbye every time. And if anything untoward happens, or anything that feels a bit unnerving happens, and you want the dialogue to end, then kind of just tell it, I'm not having this, we're ending this conversation, goodbye. And I thought, wow, I wasn't expecting that.
She was like a very respectful doorman to a posh hotel, except it was the doorman to the underworld, more so than a posh hotel. Letting people in and out, being really polite, remembering your manners, thank you, goodbye, all of that jam.
But don't get too out of hand.
Yeah, and I really did think, I thought the Ouija board was going to be the thing that blew my mind, but it didn't.
Me too. Yeah, I did wish for more from that.
Yeah. So, big question to finish off. Did anything paranormal happen?
I don't feel like it did. But I honestly feel like, it probably doesn't sound like it, but there were parts of me, at least, at parts of that evening that were open to something else happening, I think.
Hey, and that is big, because you are an active non-believer.
No, very much. So, but I was sort of interested to see. I sort of wanted, like the Ouija board thing, I wanted to see if something more would happen that might then challenge that thought of mine that it's not sort of getting in touch with the paranormal. But I don't feel like when someone in the room was very much feeling that there was the spirit of a man that was charging up and down, pacing up and down the room. I mean, I couldn't feel anything. I don't know about you.
No, and this is the thing, right? I kind of wanted to be challenged too, right? And I spoke to the guy who actually runs the company today. I spoke to him, and he was saying that he is a skeptic, he's a non-believer, but he does this kind of thing because he wants to experience something to make him believe. He wants to have that experience that's going to blow his mind, that's going to challenge his worldview. And there was lots of people there who felt cold spots, or they felt changes in temperature, or they felt presences in the room. Like there was one girl who could feel a woman
And then there was the girl who could feel the man pacing up and down, and other people were agreeing with these feelings. And I really wanted to, like, I was like, why aren't I feeling any of this?
I'd like to be part of that.
Yeah, I really did want to feel part of it, but I didn't feel anything. Like, I didn't feel cold spots. I didn't feel, like, when she was talking about the man pacing in the room, I was literally like, come on. They're waiting to feel something.
Scare me.
And I didn't feel anything. And there were people around the table who every so often were like, really like, oh, something's just caught my eye. And I just didn't. For two people who were sitting with our back to the void.
Yes. And an empty rocking chair.
And an empty rocking chair. I didn't feel a thing. Like, I didn't feel. And I really. No. And I thought, like, I've been so primed with the voices. There was, we did a spirit box where instead of bouncing through radio channels, they had audio that played backwards, and that was very freaky. Like, I found that bit very scary. And yes, there was the whispering, there was the spirit box, like there was Ouija boards on the table. I was perfectly primed.
Yeah, the atmosphere was all set
to be feeling the presence of people and feeling cold spots and all that kind of stuff, and I just didn't get it.
No, me neither. I don't know if we went to another one, or we could go to another one.
Yeah, I would go to another one. I really enjoyed it.
Another one. Yeah, it was great. We had a great evening.
Yeah.
And it was really, really fascinating. And I'd like to see what it would be like with a different group as well.
Yeah, would it be a different dynamic? Like, what would happen if it was a group that was full of giggly people?
Yeah.
Or what would happen if it was, a totally different group? I would definitely go again, just because it was a really bizarrely fun evening.
It was.
I wasn't expecting it to be, and it was actually really fun.
In Pluckley Village Hall.
I know, in the village hall. But in fairness to them, they created the atmosphere. I'll give them that.
Yeah, they did. And I can totally see how being around a small table like that really does something to create that.
Yeah.
Sort of
and I was
feel.
saying to you guys earlier that I kind of have this idea that I want to do it again, but have our group, so bring Sinead and Nick from the Poisonous Cabinet. Just Sinead is a believer, Nick is a total non-believer. He is so cutthroat about it as well. He has no beliefs in anything like that. Bring us all together and see if they will do a seance for us that we can actually film, so you guys can see what it was actually like, because that is what I want. I want people to be able to experience it and give a real insight into it.
It'd be great. That'd be really
good. So hopefully that's the next step. But thank you so much for watching. Thank you to the lovely Roanna.
Thank you very much for
joining me and giving up a Saturday night to come to a random seance. And I will see you next time.